Vybz Kartel appeal is finished. Final decision is on the way. All of that coming up in this video. This video was brought to you by TVJ.
Awaiting his fate, lawyers wrap up presentations in Kartel's appeal. Court reserves decision but says case will be given priority. Up first this evening, the fate of entertainer Vybz Kartel and his co-accused is now in the hands of the three-member panel of judges of the Court of Appeal.
The president of the Court of Appeal, Justice Dennis Morrison, says though he cannot give a specific date, some priority will be given to the ruling.
The 7-day appeal hearing concluded today after lawyers for the appellants responded to the arguments made by the prosecution.
A controversial text message that prosecutors say was sent from Kartel's phone dominated the final day of the hearing. TVJ's Vashon Brown was in court today.
There has been one big question throughout the appeal hearing. When was this message created? We chop up the boy lizard fine. Lawyers for the appellants last week said it was created on July 6, 2011. Prosecutors on Friday said it was August 19, 2011. And today, the court heard that it could have even been August 23, 2011, based on the evidence that was presented in the 2014 trial, and more dates.
Including September 30th, which said that there was a modification date and a creation date and an opportunity for the information, the messages to be manipulated.
With so many different dates of the possible creation of what the lawyers called this most material evidence, they argued that this text should not have been put to the jury. Prosecutors last week sought to make a distinction between a file and messages within a file. They told the court that July 6, 2011 was actually the date the data file with the controversial message was created, 6 weeks before Lizard's murder. The actual message, which was in the data file, they argued, was created 3 days after Lizard was killed. But today, the lawyers for the appellants told the court that a detailed analysis of the transcript of the 2014 trial did not note any difference between file and message. The cell phone itself was again under scrutiny today.
What we are saying is that the learned trial judge had a question of law to answer for himself, and that was whether or not whether the evidence had raised a reasonable doubt as to the integrity of the exhibit.
The trial judge in his summation said it has been admitted that the integrity of the phone was compromised.
That is what was relied on in my submissions to say that that was a finding by the learned trial judge, that the integrity of the exhibit itself had been compromised, and based on that, the exhibit ought not to have been given to the jury.
Another attorney for Sean Campbell
They deliberately overlooked many of the text messages and calls. And the law is that the defense should have seen all the calls made on the phones. They just handpicked a few. That's suspicion as to what was not chosen, because the police officer said it was the investigating officer who told him what to look at. That's not how the law is.
In the meantime, President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Dennis Morrison, said that the panel has decided to reserve its decision. He said he could not give a specific date for a ruling. Justice Morrison said there are over 6,000 pages of transcripts and a large number of submissions. Kartel, Kahira Jones, Sean Campbell and Andre St. John were convicted for the 2011 murder of Clive Lizard Williams. They are seeking to have their murder conviction quashed. Vashon Brown, TVJ News.
With no significant rainfall projected for the coming months, water restrictions have been announced for some areas. But as this dry condition is nothing new, neither are the measures being implemented, which raises the question, what of all the drought mitigation measures suggested over the years? TVJ's Herman Green sought an update from the National Water Commission.
Jamaica has experienced severe dry conditions almost yearly. 2014, 15 and 16 are the most recent. In those years, water levels in the Mona Reservoir and the Hermitage Dam fell below 50% of their capacity. In those years, water levels at the Mona and Hermitage Dams fell below 50% of their capacity. Now in 2018, the dry months have again caused questions to be raised about the solutions that have been discussed when things were at their worst. So what of those suggestions? Public Relations Manager at the NWC, Charles Buchanan, insists things would be worse this year if they were not implemented. He notes the difference in water levels between the Mona Dam and the Hermitage Dam. Hermitage is at 40% of its capacity.
The Mona Reservoir would also be down, if not at the same place, but it would be down as well. But because of the expediting of the Kingston and St. Andrew non-revenue water reduction program about which I spoke earlier, we're now having the Mona Reservoir having 90% of its storage, because we have already completed some of the major interventions on the Mona system.
It was estimated that leakages and illegal connections consumed close to 60% of the NWC's supply. Other suggested measures include accessing underground wells in the Ligani area of St. Andrew and reactivating old wells.
That actually was a long-term program, and what was expressed in that was for us to find ways of sewering more of the corporate area, and after you have sewered more of the corporate area and the Ligani Plains generally, you would then begin to clean up the underground aquifer in the corporate area. That program is a 20-30 year long-term strategy.
He said sewage pipe works around the corporate area are continuing as part of that program. Public-private partnerships are also being sought to access more wells. Water distribution was another challenge highlighted, as abundant water sources in the northern parishes are not available to the majority of the population in the south.
There's a great interconnectedness for a long area from, let's say, Negril via the Logwood Water Treatment Plant, come to the Great River Treatment Plant at the St. James Hanover border, continuing over to the Martha Bray system over in Trelawney, and the water can be supplied as far away as Runaway Bay. But there are elements of that interconnectedness that need to be completed in terms of the ring roading around the country.
That, he says, is also a long-term project which won't be completed before 2030. Herman Green, TVJ News.
Frustrated residents living in one St. Anne community are upset with their political representatives about a lack of water and poor road conditions. On Monday, the residents blocked sections of the Higgintown Main Road, demanding that their issues be addressed. However, the Member of Parliament, Lisa Hanna, says a project to use a well to supply water to the residents in the area has been put on hold, and that has contributed to the problem. TVJ's Shamela Mitchell-Pullen reports the problem. TVJ's Shamela Mitchell-Pullen
is a problem with the parish council because they have no trucks. I brought the NWC here and the Ministry of Water on several occasions to look at the well. The capped well right down here, sir.
But Communications Manager at the National Water Commission, NWC, Charles Buchanan, said a long-term project was identified to supply water to the residents of Higgintown. He did not reveal the cost of that project, but said it is prohibitive at this time. Meanwhile, Mr. Buchanan says the NWC has been trucking water to Higgintown once per week, which falls under the municipal corporation. Shamela Mitchell-Pullen, TVJ News.
A top story this evening, lawyers wrap up arguments in cartel appeal. The entertainer now awaits his fate as justices start review. And still ahead, Security Minister slams opposition for indicating it may withdraw support for state of emergency. And in business news, weakening, the dollar continues to slide. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Primetime News. The government today blasted the opposition for what it deems the politicization of the minimum wage issue. Addressing Parliament today, Labour Minister Shahini Robinson was responding to criticisms about the rate of increase from her opposition counterpart Horace Daly. TVJ's Janela Pursues reports.
Parliament should have been on recess, but on Tuesday...
Today, Mr. Speaker, I hereby ask this Honourable House to affirm the following increases as approved by Cabinet.
MPs were called back in to debate and approve the order which gives the clearance for an increase in the minimum wage. Come August 1, the minimum wage will move from $6,200 to $7,000. Opposition spokesman on Labor and Social Security, Horace Daly, argued that at $800 more, the increase is inadequate.